I'm going to introduce tonight's speaker. So tonight we're welcoming Stephanie Slate. And like I mentioned earlier, Stephanie's work will be in our June show. And she was selected as our Living Image 2023/2024 Grand Prize winner. And our guest juror who selected her was Anne Jastrab. And if you're not familiar with Living Image, it's our annual call for entry show. The way it works is that we have the call for entry, we always have a guest juror, and the guest juror picks a grand prize winner. And part of that prize is that their work forms like the cornerstone of the spring show, which I curate. So Anne chose Stephanie's work. And so her work, like I said, formed the cornerstone of this show that I curated for June. So Stephanie will be sharing new work in that show, her latest work. And in that and in all of her work, she blurs the line between reality and subconscious. And she also invites viewers to delve into the depths of their own psyches. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, is that up? Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you all for joining. Really excited and appreciate you taking the time to join in and listen. I'm going to, I think, kind of start from the beginning and go. I tend to talk a lot about process because that's what excites me a lot. And I feel like a lot of times fellow photographers really want to know kind of like the hows and the process and technique behind an image. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. And I'm starting way back when from the beginning. I started out hating photography. I wanted to be a painter or a drawer, and my grandparents were actually photographers and owned their own studio. That's what they did for a living. When I was really young, my grandfather passed away, so I would stay weekends and just a lot of time with my grandmother, so she wasn't alone. And so the walls were always filled with their photography work. Um, when I'm telling you, and I've never seen a home like this since, but almost every inch of every wall had something on it. Like you could just barely see the wall between prints, and this was in almost every room. So they were also into some kind of darker themed thing. So I think that really just kind of permeated into my psyche and my work. Um, I so and as you'll see, a lot of my work it's kind of darker. It's often described as like ethereal, dark, morbid, things like that. And what an image to start off with here. But I'm showing this one because this was the first image I took where photography started to grow on me. So I went to school that specialized in art, and I had to take a photography class. And so this was image from that class, and I kept coming back to it, really liking it. Something as simple as just changing perspective and, getting low with the subject matter kind of opened my eyes to like how much somebody can do with this medium. In the beginning, I was like, anybody can just take a picture, like who cares? So this was really the first time when it opened my eyes. I said, oh, wait, I can really do some more exciting things with this. So that's why I like to start with this one. It's that kind of door opener for me. And I started to, oh, it's not letting me click sorry guys, I'm trying to click to the next image, but it doesn't want me to.
Can you use the arrows?
Oh, you know what? I just clicked the screen and that worked. So I'll do that. The arrows did not want to work. So where I shot that photograph, there was something so kind of magical and mysterious about this area. I grew up in Florida, and it was just this stretch between uh, my house and my family's and friends. It was this long stretch of road, Okeechobee, and it was surrounded by orange groves and cow pastures and the slaughterhouse. And it was abandoned, it wasn't in use, but it was just the most peaceful place at that time on planet Earth to me. And the smell of the orange groves and just being here, it's just one of those things where you can't really explain it too well. So I tried to photograph it as much as I could. And pretty quickly, I started really pushing boundaries and experimenting with the medium. For example, this is a pinhole image. I absolutely love pinhole. And this kind of pinhole and mixing my own chemistry for development are really the first couple of things I started to do with as far as process goes and kind of pushing the boundaries with photography at the time for me. So all of these images were shot there. And this is an example. I found this piece of bone here, and I printed on it because why not? um, I was trying always to think of different ways how to use photography, printing on different surfaces, really just trying to think of what I can do with this medium that is kind of so magical and lovely. This is another image that these, other than that one on bone, are platinum palladium prints. Originally they weren't. Originally they were silver gelatin, but then I revisited them once I learned this process, which I absolutely adore. Um, this was a little bit later on. It was a little project I was working on in, I tend, sorry, I'll apologize in advance. I kind of jump around sometimes, so just bear with me. Usually I make the full loop around, but not always. Um, so sometimes when I don't really know what to do, as far as uh, inspiration and what to make, I'll just photograph the things around me, just to kind of try to keep that like photo muscle a little bit active, even if I don't have any ideas or major plans. So this was kind of during a time in my life when I was doing that. I had just had an ectopic pregnancy, which I know that seems like TMI, but that will come back later into the work. So I was kind of feeling really lonely and everything was really quiet. I had been expecting the house to be filled with, chaos and crying, and it wasn't. So I was just kind of photographing the quietness and the stillness around me. And my dog Bama would always photobomb, and I said, you know what? Let's do it. So that's this image. So for a long while, I was working with platinum palladium. There's something about a real challenge that I absolutely adore. It really kind of gets me up in the morning. So I also sometimes think like, why do I hate myself? Why am I doing this? Why can't I just do something a little bit more easy? But I had been working with platinum palladium for a while, which if you aren't already familiar, it's a very finicky process. So you're having to make sure the humidity in the room is just so. You're having to really count your drops of chemistry and make sure you're coating your paper like a little angel. Everything's got to be very specific and technical. So I was doing that for a while and I'm like, okay, what else is next? So being a huge fan of Sally Mann, I decided to give the wet plate collodion process a try. I think I had watched a documentary or seen an article or something of her traveling around in her Jeep making these wet plate collodion. And I have that sickness where I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And this goes for everything, including like electrical work. So I said, you know what, if she can do it, I can. So I started working with this process. And like a lot of things I do, they're not always the most technically sound. And that's what I love about it. Like I love the mistakes and I love the accidents and I love, this image, if the process is done correctly, you shouldn't have these little white blotches of dust and things like that. But I love that. Um, I think there's actually a meme that says something like, I love the streaks. It's a printmaking meme making fun of people like me, but it is what it is. So I started a project where I was photographing people around me. And I was actually, when I take their picture, I would take a clip of their hair also. And I would make like these, sometimes I would paint with the hair, but a lot of times I would just kind of make these floral designs with it. And in my own home, for nobody else, was kind of showing the portrait with their hair. It comes from this, like, I'm always fearful of losing everything. So was trying to like I wanted to like a little collection of people who were close to me, and I wanted physical parts of them too. And in the images, I was trying at the time to make them look like statue busts. So working with the process and trying to figure out how I could do that, I was just draping like a velvet cloth. In turn, it ended up, they looked like post-mortem pictures. That wasn't the intent at the time, but yeah. And just having more fun with the process. So a little bit of a jump here. I then started grad school, and I couldn't afford platinum palladium printing. I couldn't afford wet plate, and I felt pretty lost. At the time, just like I started out disliking photography, I didn't have much admiration for the cyanotype process. At that time, again, it was like, well, it's kind of too easy. Like it's so forgiving, and it's, you can just put A and B together, it's just very forgiving. You don't have to worry about your humidity or temperatures. That is now why I absolutely love the process. But this piece was from one of the first times, and this is a really large piece. It's about 40 inches wide, like 3 feet by 4 feet, about, so almost as tall as me. When I first made this piece, I was trying really hard to to uh, to approach the medium like I was with platinum, which is I was being really careful with coating the paper and being really meticulous and trying to do everything perfect, quote unquote. And it was all done. And I think I went to go put the brush or squeegee or something up, and these drops just fell on the print. And I didn't notice it at the time. So I printed it anyway. And at first I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, yes. And it really just opened the doors completely for me. And I really started to push that with this process. Like, what can I do? Like, this is such an amazing medium where you can paint it on almost anything. And you don't have to be so meticulous. You can really kind of be gestural with it and really do all kinds of exciting things with it. So that took over my life for, I don't know, the last 15 years. Um, so this was the first piece that started that. Um, I, about context, I at that time had just had my daughter. I started grad school, and it was fun timing. But it was a time in my life where because I had had the ectopic pregnancy the whole time I was pregnant with her, I was completely terrified of losing her. And then when she was born, I was almost immediately terrified of losing myself, like my self identity. She had completely taken over my body. And after she was born, it's just this like this feeling of like this alien form kind of taking over. And after she was born, I mean, I don't do well with without a good amount of sleep. If I don't have at least 6, 7 hours, I might as well be on some kind of psychedelic drug. So a lot of lack of sleep after she was born had me feeling all kinds of sorts of things. And I was never alone with myself anymore. I had always been alone all the time growing up, always alone. And that's kind of it's peaceful for me. And it's when I can create and I was never alone. I never had any kind of quiet time. So as much as I was afraid of losing her, I also was kind of craving like a little bit of alone time still. So it was like this connect and disconnect that was really hard. Like I'd ask my husband, like, just please have her, feed her this feeding. But then I wanted to do it. I mean, that sounds silly, but so this work was really about this kind of push and pull. And I was still also really that fear of losing her. I mean, that's with any parent or anybody who has somebody close to them, that fear kind of never goes away. So with this work, I was thinking a lot about that and um kind of like I was thinking a lot about pregnancy and the safety of like the your uterus and amniotic fluid as a cushion. So that's something I was thinking about a lot. This piece I studied abroad in Italy, and it was the first time I had been away from my daughter. And so I was really excited to have that creative time, but I was also constantly being pulled back mentally to her. And this piece was shot at the Ospedale degli Innocenti, which was the world's first orphanage, if I'm not mistaken. And outside of the building are these rotundas of all these children wrapped in these, I don't know if it's gauze or what, but it's just gorgeous. And I'm getting the chills. Part of it, there's this rotunda, this big marble wheel, and I had no idea what it was. But there was something so incredible about it. And then I learned it was where mothers could drop off their babies. If they weren't able to take care of them, they would put them on this big marble wheel and wheel it inside to the hospital where the nurses would see it, and the mom's identity would remain, not known. So there was just something so bone chilling about that at that specific time in my life. And I ended up creating a whole project, an artist book about it. And this book is actually quite large. It's open, it's 1824. So it was the first time I had made a book, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do it, go big or go home. But there was really something I wanted the viewer to really feel kind of enveloped and sucked into it the way I did with that wheel. So this was a cyanotype project, and the first time I started incorporating other layers of processes on it. So already I don't ever just coat a cyanotype, expose it, and then I'm done. That's never happened. So I'll coat something, expose it, bleach part of it out, coat it again, re-expose it, uh, you know, um, what is the word I'm looking for? Putting it in tannic acid, not staining it, but toning it. So there's always all these layers, and I've always also had a strong desire for printmaking. So this was one of the first projects where I incorporated some letterpress into it, and that was a lot of fun. So these are just some details. So the words were letterpress, but also I made these constellation figures, and so those were impressed. And there's something just, I'm a very tactile person, so I think with photography, that's also why I love alternative processes, because you can coat it on like this luscious, thick paper or bone or wood or anything. But so there's something about the embossment with the plates on top of the photographs that I just love so much. It's like an impression of something having been there. Like there's just something really magical to me about that. Um, this is a cyanotype, if you can believe that. I really, really, really love pushing things and seeing what I can get out of them. So it's handmade paper, and I was messing around with the chemistry of the paper to see how it would react differently with the cyanotype chemistry. It was a more blue image at first, but then with bleaching out and toning, I got these kind of interesting browns and purples. And this is the detail shot with the letterpress. And I'm not sure where we are in time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster, but Dale, make sure you yell at me if we're getting to the end. So I said, okay, I'm doing all these kind of cool to me things with cyanotype, as far as like letting myself go and not being so stressed out about everything being perfect. So I tried to revisit platinum palladium with this same kind of mentality. And this is what came of that. This is an image of my daughter and I printed it platinum palladium and then was adding layers of other processes on top to kind of try to loosen myself up and have fun with that process as well. So jumping again, after grad school, I was stuck in a rut for a really, really long time. Um, I, at the end, had another ectopic pregnancy, which also left me with this really strange trophoblastic disease. They were they called me a medical zebra, and they like have me written up in all these medical journals. That's kind of cool. But it just took a lot out of me, and it took a long time to really digest that. So I didn't have many ideas. So I was still trying to keep that muscle a little bit active. And so I was just photographing hands and adding things from my garden, just be trying to be active in the studio. And then COVID came, and all I could think about was we are just fertilizer. We're just fertilizer for the earth and the garden. I had been working in my garden so much. Um, I know that sounds really morbid, but to me, it's like this really freeing, peaceful feeling, like it doesn't matter, like anything can come, a comet, a disease, anything could come and just wipe us all out, because we are just this tiny little speck of nothingness. And to me, it's like a breath of fresh air, like, oh, okay. It doesn't matter that I'm going to be 5 minutes late to the dentist appointment, or that this is happening at work. Like, it doesn't matter. And so that's really freeing to me. And that's what's the basis of this work. It's really actually pretty simple. I am always working with constraints. I don't ever have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of space. This is actually my studio I'm in right now. So it's smaller. I have a small printer that's not very up to date. So I always am having to figure out workarounds. And so to print larger, I'm always printing small negatives and piecing them together. So a lot of these pieces are larger. I have some images later to show, but I was having just so much fun kind of puzzle piecing together body parts and flowers, and it was a really fun project for me. and they're all cyanotypes, all toned or bleached, things like that. This is just to show you how I'm toning things because I don't always have trays big enough. So sometimes I'll just do things right in my sink. And I always kind of like seeing the behind the scenes with artists. So I hope that's why I'm including this. I hope it's interesting to some of you. Um, so yeah, a lot of times I when the print first comes out, I won't exactly know what to do with it, but just like that the composition's not balanced or something else is needed. And so usually I'll do that with bleaching. So for example, in this one, that top area, like I was just working with bleaching and recoating to kind of help with that gestural arching movement and also to balance out those highlights in the print. That's to show scale. This is kind of like a medium size, I'd call it. And then I said, okay, well, this is a lot of fun. And in the past, people had really pushed me to work really large, and I fought it tooth and nail. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's jump in. Why not? So this piece is about 4 foot high. And I was so because of the trophoblastic disease, I never got to finish my thesis, and the work was always kind of weighing on me. I never really had closure with it or finished it. So I started to revisit my the work I began with thesis. Except now I'm working from home, so I don't have the studios to use. So I'm trying to figure out, how I can do things at home. I have some pictures soon to show. And you'll see too, I'll bounce back to this, but a lot of times I'll do things in one process and then realize it would translate a lot better in another. So for example, this was the original, like the baby, if you will, of the photogravure actually that Anne Jastraub ended up choosing for the living image exhibition. So this is to show how I'm exposing things. I do have an exposure unit, but it's not big enough for these big guys. So I'm usually out in the sun, or sometimes in my studio. If it's windy outside, I'll do it in here. Always putting children to work, helping me process things. And I never stop doing this. So you don't want to be around me when I'm printing because it's such a fast process, and I'm looking at something, I'm like, oh my God, I need some bleach. Let me bleach it. And I'm bleaching. I'm like, no, too much. Get the hose, trying to hose it off. And I'm frantic. And if you get in my way, I'm going to yell at you because I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just totally frantic. And this happens every time, like while I'm toning and bleaching, when it's reacting together, it gives the most amazing colors. And I get so excited. I know it will never dry that way. But here I was like, I couldn't stop. I had to take a picture, and this isn't the best to show you. I did have some up closes, but it's really, it's like a living, breathing animal almost, watching it go through the changes of printing. And how everything's reacting and morphing and moving color wise. It's really exciting for me. So I'm printing on these large pieces of paper. And again, I say, how can I make this harder on myself? Because that's what I do. So I decided to hand make the big giant paper. And again, I don't have access to a paper studio or beater or anything. So I'm beating the pulp with a drill, and I turn my back of my pickup truck into a big paper vat. And these screens I just made out of 2x4s and like silk screening mesh. Um, so usually I really like to work by myself. Other people probably like that as well, again, because I get kind of frantic and bossy. But unfortunately, with these big pieces, I do need my husband's help because pulling up these screens full of the pulp, it's so heavy. And also just to get it like we have to rock the screens back and forth to get the sheets even. So I'm really fortunate that he helps me with these things. So this is an image of handmade paper. The paper is slightly more delicate than other paper I use when I work large, so I have to process it on a screen the entire time. So I I don't have to expose it on the screen. That I can just do regular, but when it gets wet again, I have to keep it on a screen. So while I'm bleaching, toning, washing, it's all on a screen. And this is to show you I'm not lying when I say they're almost my height. Um, Again, I'm always kind of trying to figure out how I can incorporate more processes, and I love printmaking so much. So this was an attempt at a collograph on top of this. So I had, you can't see in the picture, it's really hard to see in person, to be honest, as well, but I had all this old Victorian wallpaper that I've been keeping for 20 years now. And so I inked it and rolled it up, and it works really nicely on my not handmade paper, but because my handmade paper is so textured, you don't really get to see the pattern very nicely. But I liked this regardless without seeing the pattern. Trying to figure out how to incorporate color sometimes and just different processes. So this is a collograph I made with an embroidered shirt, actually. Um, and this is also handmade paper. This was a family portrait I did. The original version was a Polaroid, actually. Handmade paper. This was mostly all paper negatives, which was fun to do. Um, and I'm just going to check the time, see. Okay, I'm not so bad. This is to show scale. So working with these large pieces and here in the attic, like I don't have too much counter space, or it can be kind of frustrating. And I feel like oftentimes I'm fighting with the prints, like, get out of my way, or, I just need to get over here and you're in my way. And I have a strange relationship with this big giant work. um, this was one of the newer pieces I made. This is currently in an exhibit, Grief and Joy. And again, it was revisiting some of the thesis work. And I was really thinking about like the womb and amniotic fluid and the loss. And so also with the tropho, this might be TMI, but I'm just, oh well. With the trophoblastic disease, the doctor actually showed me what had happened, which is that the pregnancy, it was ectopic and it burst, and the cells from the pregnancy were in my abdomen wall and attached themselves and were growing. And she showed me a picture of it, and it was so cool. It was like to me it looked like little tube worms from the sea. It was like these nodules. And so it's something I've been trying to figure out how to kind of incorporate in the work. So right now it exists of these like just ambiguous kind of nodular forms. So it's something I've just been trying to work with visually, but this was part of that. This is to show you scale again. And now we are in totally current time, so current that I don't know if you can see it, but I've got prints drying behind me on the clothes rack. So I had been working with cyanotype for a very long time. And once again, I come to a point in my life where I say, okay, how can I make things harder on myself? So I had just gotten this press, and I at the time was just for fun doing woodblock, what I call drawings, just prints. And I'm like, it kind of clicked in my head. I said, oh my goodness, I have a press now. And the only thing ever stopping me from doing photogravure was not having access to a press. So I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a try. This was one of the first plates I made. And I was apprehensive about sharing this with anybody, but there's actually a lot of technical difficulties on this plate. And so when I was applying for the living image exhibition, the print was literally wet when I sent it in. I mean, I applied like the last minute I could because I was trying to get a better plate than this without technical problems. But once again, with my work, the accidents and the technical problems a lot really just lend themselves nicely to the work overall. And it ends up that I find ways how to kind of master them, like the accidents, and use them to my advantage. Um, so for example, in the lower right corner of this print, the emulsion kind of started to peel up and it gives this nice texture. So now I'm doing that on purpose with other prints in certain areas to get that texture again. But at the time I was like, oh my God, it's a bad print. This was plate number 2 with less technical difficulties. So I just, this actually plate number 2, I'm going to show at the Halide in June. Um, uh, so yeah. Um, this is just to show the process. So you expose, you make this tissue light sensitive, then you expose it, then you transfer that tissue to a copper plate, then you put the copper plate in an etchant, and then you buff and polish the plate, ink it up, and put it through the press. So anybody who's not familiar with the process, it's very involved. Going back to platinum palladium, my humidity in the room has to be perfect. The temperature of all of my chemistry and water has to be perfect. But I am working a lot smaller, which is kind of nice right now. It's been a long time of working large and having the prints in my way and tripping on them. And now I can like put them in a drawer, which is really nice. And what I'm doing now is to get some exciting textures. I'm scanning cyanotype prints and then incorporating that on with the photogravures. So I'm also like, well, wait a minute, I'm working on a copper plate and I've done etching before. Why not add layers of etching or marbling? So I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but like this orb figure in the upper right, like I've etched line work into the plate also. So I'm having a lot of fun with this process and I'm just really excited in general. It's all new for me for the most part. And so I'm really just working a lot and having a lot of fun with it. So this is an example too of kind of stealing from other processes. This originally was a lithograph I did. And so I scanned that lithograph and worked with it more, then created a negative and have transferred it now to the photogravure process. And this is an example of multiple etched line work and also doing marbling on the plate. This is my neighbor's yard. I was keeping my fingers crossed they wouldn't come home when I was doing this. Yeah, and this is actually the last, there's one image after this. I just wanted to show you a lot of times with the kind of more, I don't want to call it abstract, but with these types of images, like they're always coming from something like this. So, my dog had torn up a pillow and my son was being silly with it. And that's kind of what gave me part of the idea for that last print. If I could figure out how to go back, I would, but I can't. But just to show you kind of like everything I do stems from photography first. It always starts with an image, a photograph, and then kind of travels through this uh, road of processes till I get a final image. So I think I'll leave it at that. And should I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, you can stop sharing.
Okay.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah.
That was a lot of process.
Yes, sorry.
No need to
If
apologize.
nobody's, but that's what I get excited to hear about, that for other people. So,
Yeah. No, it was interesting to see the whole like trajectory. And if anybody has questions about process or anything else,
mhm.
you can put them into the chat for Stephanie, or there's a raise hand function. So if you want to actually ask it with your voice, you can
And
uh
while people are doing that, I'll add, because I forgot to say this, with this newer work, I'm kind of exploring like this in between state. So I'm always interested in like the weird and the unknown and death and what happens. And what started this newer project is these episodes of sleep paralysis I've been having. So it's like this question of like, where are like where are we when we're not in our body, when we're sleeping, when we're dreaming, when we're after death. So that's what I'm exploring now, just to put that out there.
um Larry has his hand raised, so I'm going to. All right, you should be able to talk now, Larry, if you take yourself off mute. Yep.
Yeah, so you can hear me?
Yep.
Good. Are those constellations in your work real constellations?
Yes. And they're all very specific. So usually it's my daughter and I, sometimes would be other family members, but yes, they are.
Okay, and just one more question. The typography that you include, is that your original wording or it comes from some other source?
No, the wording is mine. That it's like poems I would write and things like that. The font itself I didn't create though, if that's the
What font
question.
is that?
What font is it?
Yes.
Oh, I couldn't tell you actually. I'll have to read it.
Yeah, because I'm into typography.
Okay. It's have it right here actually. in the in my flat file. It is the text, and forgive me if I mispronounce a word, because this is not my area, but the text is set in the family of Ditto, from the Linotype Foundry and digitally designed by Adrian Frutiger, who passed away in 2015. It's a contemporary extension of the French type founder Furman Ditto's
Can you
original
spell
design.
can you spell that font, please?
Yes, I think it's DIDOT. I think that's what they're calling the name of the font.
Oh,
That
But
ditto.
I can
Yeah, that
also
sounds
send you
familiar.
this colophon, which gives you all the information. I can send that offline to you too.
Yeah, I think it's pronounced ditto.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, thanks for the questions, Larry. Let's see, JJ in the chat says, such beautiful work. Outside of bleach, what is your favorite element to tone with?
So my main two friends are bleach and ammonia. Of course, never together. So very separate. Like I'll do the bleach, I'll wash the print thoroughly and then come at it. And the reason why I like the two in tandem is because the bleach gives a kind of more yellowy, uh, more white yellow, and the ammonia gives me like a more kind of pinky fleshy. And sometimes when I do one on top of the other, but not the liquid, like it gives this cold kind of other, like super pink color I can't get any other way. And also tannic acid is my favorite. And when I don't have tannic acid, I go to the brewery, like the brew your own beer store, and they have a tannic that's made for wine making, and I'll use that, but that's very aggressive. Like it really changes the print, which can be nice sometimes, but yeah.
Just also to reiterate, please do not do this at home with the bleach and the ammonia
No,
because it will kill you.
yes,
So
yes. I'm very careful about thoroughly washing everything between those two steps.
Oh, just also for people in the audience, I get a transcript of the chat. So if you want to put something in there to share with Stephanie, it doesn't have to be a question, it could be a comment. You can put it in the chat, and then I'll share the transcript with her afterwards. So feel free to put stuff like that in, as well as questions. And Annalisa says, you should check Jung's take on those if you're interested in those subjects, if that helps. And she loves the amount of processes that each picture goes through. And I'm assuming that's, like kind of where the subconscious or conscious, like where you are when you sleep, because I know Jung wrote a lot about sleep and death and all of that. So I don't know, have you read Jung?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
not for a while, because life right now just doesn't let me read as much as I'd like to, but absolutely, absolutely.
Right. I have to say, like you were talking about the baby wheels, the rote in Italy, and I'm photographing those. I photographed 2 of them when I was in Italy
Oh.
this last year. I learned about them from a book that was talking about the 1600s and the correlation between like what was happening in the environment and then what would happen in human society. So like a volcanic eruption causing, famine or crop failure and famine and all of that. But it mentioned that, in specifically in Italy, although they existed elsewhere. So I've been like tracking down the ones that still exist in Italy and going to
That's
photograph
incredible.
them. Yeah, which one was the one that you saw that you
It's
were
in
inspired by?
Florence.
That's one I have not photographed yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right, sorry to go on a little tangent there, but
No.
yeah. If anyone else has questions and like I said, comments that you'd like to share with Stephanie, please put them in the chat. And then don't forget the show that she is a part of opens on Sunday. And yes, JJ, there is space available in the advanced cyanotype class. Yep. So you can sign up through their website. It's I can't remember the exact dates, but it's in July. So you can go to the workshops page on the website. Yeah, excellent. I can't remember what I was saying. What was I saying? Oh, come to the show.
Oh, yes.
In addition to the cyanotype workshops, come to the show. The opening is Sunday, June 2nd. And along with Stephanie's work, you'll see Emma Powell and Rebecca Zeiss. So we hope to see you there. All right, last chance for questions, comments. Marta says, wonderful to see the art in process. So many layers, literally, to your unique, meaningful body of works.
Thank you.
All right, loving the experimentation and the different processes and not worrying about perfection. Yes, which I think a lot of photographers do, since it can be very literal and very sharp and detailed and literal. Letting go of all that is, I think, can be a challenge for some photographers. So it's nice to see that.
It can be very hard. Yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. And thank you, Stephanie. And we'll see
Thank
more of
you.
you in the future.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
All right. Good night, everybody.